You're not alone. If you need someone to talk to today, please contact Crisis Services Canada by either calling them at 1-833-456-4566 all hours of the day, or you can text them at 45645 at 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Time. Remember, you're not alone, and Crisis Services Canada is here to help. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Graeme Forsyth. Today's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba is brought to you by AETI, Evolve Green, and Fabricland Winkler. In today's edition of the show, 4 people will be joining the show in total, 3 interviews for you guys. Coming up first is going to be Harry Siemens on this week's edition of the Farm Report. Lots to talk to with Harry in today's edition of the report, so excited for that. Also going to have Gordie Tumilson, who is the goalie coach and marketing director of Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, come on to talk about the past weekend of games for the teams in the academy, as well as talking about the marketing plans for the new U18 Prep Male program that the academy announced that will be coming into the academy coming up next season. Lorena Mitchell is back this week on an edition of the Farm Report, and not the Farm Report, the Solar Report, sorry. The Farm Report is first up with Harry, and then to end off the show, it's an edition of Graeme's Opinion. Seth Rach will be joining the show with me in part 1 of that to talk about the Winnipeg Jets, some NHL trade deadline stuff, as well as the NHL All-Star Game weekend, and then I'll go solo in part 2 of Graeme's Opinion today to give my Super Bowl 56 prediction, as well as my NFL award prediction winners, and some other stuff as well. So stay tuned for all that good stuff coming up on Rise and Shine Manitoba today on ASTV Productions. But first off, Harry Siemens will be joining the Farm Report. But first, we're going to roll the intro, and once that intro rolls, Manitoba, you know what it's time to do. It's time to rise and shine here on ASTV. And as always, here on Rise and Shine, to start off our broadcast here today in terms of who will be joining the show first, it's going to be Harry Siemens on this week's edition of the Farm Report. Harry Siemens joining me on this Wednesday morning. As always, Harry, thanks for taking the time and joining the show here. As always on this Wednesday morning, this time being on February 9th. How are you doing in this on this Wednesday morning today?
I'm doing great. You know what? It's been an interesting week to say the least, and so it's been one of those things. I've been on several U.S. radio networks in the last couple of days talking about the convoy and so forth going on in Ottawa and different parts of the country, and all I want to say about that this morning is that I've said it a few times already. It's more about from my perspective, it's more about the supply chain issue, and so we've got feed shortages, we've got pigs that aren't going over to the United States, and it isn't just because of truckers not wanting to go because they're not vaxxed. Well, they can't go. But it's because we have a shortage of truckers in general. And as said before, everything moves by truck, one way or the other. Some, 100 feet maybe, some 100 miles, some 1,000 miles, some 10,000 miles. I have a trucker friend who, his name is Abe Giesbrecht. He's from Plum Coulee. He lives 8 miles away from where I live, and that's my home stomping ground. But I met him on Facebook as a trucker, and I follow him every day. And this last week, he put on 4,400 miles. That's like 6,500 kilometers. He went one way, he went the other way, and he went back. And it's just, interesting. And I love the way he looks after his family. I love the way he looks after his spouse and so forth. And it's just an interesting scenario. But not every trucker is that way. And so truckers have sometimes given the industry a bad name because of a few bad apples. So that means that other people don't want to be part of it. Some people say, well, I'm not making any money trucking, but why are you continuing to truck? But the whole issue with the convoy going to Ottawa and so forth, that's really a much bigger issue. And it looks like because of some of the things that are happening in Saskatchewan, as of February the 14th, no mandates, no restrictions other than masks.
Yeah.
In Alberta, some of the same things are happening there. And so it's drawing attention to some of the situations. I know the whole COVID thing is serious because I had it. But at the same time, are we going to continue to inflict economic damage to our economy? You've got to balance it off, which is going to be worse long term. And so I feel for every family that has lost a loved one. I've lost friends. I've lost relatives because of COVID. But at the same time, I also lost my wife to cancer. And so there's all kinds of issues. So let's leave it at there. I hope they can come to a peaceful resolution and we can continue to move on with a less restricted country.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see when that, if a resolution comes in this whole matter. So we'll continue to stay up to date with the truck convoy coming up here on Rise and Shine Manitoba for the foreseeable future, as long as this story lasts, as long as the truckers are still in Ottawa. But Harry, moving on to feed prices going through the roof, does that play into this whole trucker convoy thing?
Well, it's in part the trucker convoy causing restrictions or reductions in freight and so forth has just added to the problem. But I'm on a WhatsApp group of hog producers, and one hog producer was posting just a couple of days ago barley prices $10 a bushel, and he wasn't sure if he could get it. Well, barley prices at $10 a bushel, when you're feeding that to pigs, you know what? There's really very little margin left as far as profit is concerned, because that's just such a horrific expense. And I'm not complaining about it from the grain standpoint, because it's a supply demand situation. But at the same time, those kinds of prices are hurting our agricultural industry, especially the livestock side. And then I talked to a cattle producer, Warren Graydon. He's from Dominion City area, east of the Red River. And I talked to Warren this week about the cattle business. And he said, the drought of 2021, he was fortunate. He got a bit more rain than maybe some other areas. But he says, once you start paying $150 a bale, which is what he called slew hay, meaning it's the cheapest, poorest quality hay, he says, that when you feed that to the cow, first of all, the nutrition isn't there. Secondly, at that price, you take it to market and you may as well have not had that cow, because you're not going to make any money. So we're really challenging. But then for grain producers, it's like last year we were 65% of a normal crop, and so that is an issue. So the prices are higher. So that's what's tying into all of this. But let me give you a real positive. I saw a story on the Pembina Valley Online having to do with the Pembina Valley Water Co-op. And it gets its water from Stephenfield Lake. It gets its water from the Red River. And they've done a 180-degree turnaround, Graeme, from where they were really in serious trouble. And the reason the turnaround, the 30% above average snowfall that we've had in the month of January. And that is a real good news story. because it may not do that much for the subsoil moisture. There we still need good rainfall in spring, and the subsoil moisture is low. But when you start to fill up sloughs, you start to fill up creeks, you start to fill up rivers, that's a positive. It's like a 180-degree turn on people's attitudes. The one negative, the Morden Lake Minnewaska, which is 8 miles west of where I live in Winkler, that lake is still 13 feet below flow levels. And the city of Morden depends on its water from there. So that's a challenge still. And as far as that lake, and they need to have runoff and more snow in spring in order to fill up that lake as well. So you know what? That's kind of where things are at in those things. But I think I had some other things that we could talk about.
Yeah, and we'll move into that now. We'll move into this story, and then we'll get into your farming story for the week, and then your farming tip of the week to end things off here, Harry. But talking about, new food-grade non-go soybeans making inroads. Give us an update on that. Not an update, but tell us what that's all about.
Well, for the most part, we grow about 1.2 million acres of soybeans in Manitoba. And those are all genetically modified soybeans. They go into the feed industry. And some, with processing, will go into maybe some soybean oil and so forth. But now there's a company that started to, and I just found out about it, but they've been going at it for about 3-4 years. It's Alita, I think it is. I'm just going from memory now. And they sent out a release to me telling me that they've got a number of farmers that are growing these soybeans. So I called one farmer, Kyle Friesen, H&M Farms, that just is north of Altona. And I asked him, I said, why are you growing these beans? He says, well, Harry, it's because of the money. And the money is because they're getting a premium for growing non-GMO food-grade soybeans. The other beans are mostly for animal feed. And so that's the real issue. The only thing with the non-GMO soybeans, it takes a little more cost of production in order to control the weeds. Some of the chemicals that they have to use for that are different than what they were for the GMO modified soybeans. So the input costs are higher, but like Kyle told me, he says, you know what, it's good to get into that food grade market as far as beans are concerned. You know that it's going for a better option than strictly animal feed, even though there's nothing wrong with that. And then the premium that they get for it. The yields between the genetically modified GMO soybeans and the non-GMO, at this point, he tells me, about comparable. So the yields are the same, input costs are higher, but the premium that they're getting for those soybeans is much higher than what they get for the normal GMO soybeans. So for him, it's a start. He said they're in their 4th year that they'll be growing those non-GMO food grade soybeans.
Wow, that's interesting, and it is interesting that they use some different chemicals in terms of everything involved in that. So gonna be interesting to see, what's gonna have in store for that as the future rolls along here in agriculture, Harry. But let's get to your farming story of the week. You did one last week. What would this week's farming story be here on the Farm Report?
In 2017. My wife, Judith, my late wife, Judith, and I traveled to Europe, and we made a couple of connections. One was with Mike Lee. I'd met him on Twitter, and we'd done a number of interviews. And once he found out that we were coming to England, then he says, Harry, let's meet up. So that was in Exeter, which is southern England. And so that was number one. And then I talked to my friend, Dr. John Carr, who's an international renowned veterinarian, and he has clients probably in 9 countries feeding pigs. I says, John, get me your best pig producer that I can go and interview. And John says, are you sure? He says, will I still have a client after you're finished with them? And I said, you bet. Well, he was joking, but at the same time, he introduced me to the top pig producers in England. And then I found out that they lived basically on the same road with Mike Lee, even though 4 hours apart. And so we took, we stayed in downtown London at the St. Ermines Hotel, 10 minutes away from Buckingham Palace, because my wife was a royalty fan.
Yeah.
And Mike Lee said, I'll pick you up. So Mike picked us up, 6-hour drive in, took us to his place at home. We had a barbecue with farmers in southern England. And then he picked us up again the next morning from the hotel. We had breakfast with him and his wife. And then he took us, I think 2-3 hours down the road to this next farm where we stayed for a night at a hotel. And the early morning, the father of that farm picked us up, and he toured us all day. And he said, you know what? He says, it's about the only day that I've had off in a long time, and I'm enjoying it. So he took us home, 3 sons that were farming with him. They had another barbecue for us with farmers in the area.
Yeah.
You know, so to us, it was just an amazing. And then we needed to take the train back to London. And so one of the brothers says, you know what? I'll take you to the train. So he had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, took us to the train, and we were back on the train. Beautiful, beautiful scenery on the way back to London, England. So, you know, I have so many of those stories in 50 years. They're not all exactly the same, but I can tell a story in Mexico. I can tell a story in Hawaii. I can tell a story in Belgium and Germany, Switzerland, all kinds of stories like that. And we're going to keep telling them because it's a great, it's a memory builder for me, and we'll just keep talking about it.
Yeah, and it's going to be exciting to hear about all the other stories that you'll have in store for us, in store for me and the viewers here on the Farm Report as this segment rolls along for the foreseeable future. Of course, Harry, you know, talking about the farming tip of the week now for farmers here from Siemens Says on this week's edition of the Farm Report to end things off.
I think today, and again, I don't have to tell most of the farmers this, but it's when I do these things, it's also for the benefit of the non-farmers. And you know, the cost of production, you know, and just the way we farmed in the past, you know, like I remember farming with my father. You know, you got your seed, you got your price, you got your input costs, but at the same time, you know, you normally made some money unless you had a crop failure. Nowadays, with the input costs the way they are, and with the grain prices are fluctuating, and the cattle and the pig prices, my tip of the week is, guys and gals, make sure you know what it costs you to produce that bushel of grain, that pound of pork, that pound of beef, or whatever you're producing, because there's a company here, a meat shop. It's called Spence Brothers Premium Meats that is started here in Winkler, 2006. 2 boys and a dad. They have a beef feedlot, and they've done extremely well. Why? Because Paul told me about how he had developed a formula so that he knows exactly what cost each pound of beef that goes out the door costs him to produce. And I think, you know what? Then it doesn't matter so much how much you sell it for, as long as you sell it for a little bit more than what it costs. But if you don't know the costs, you can't, you know, you maybe think you're doing it, but you're not. So that's my tip of the week for everybody today.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And funny you mentioned Spence Brothers, Harry, because I do enjoy their pizza that they do make and sell in the stores. So now you're making me hungry here on this Wednesday morning. But I'll let you go here, Harry. Thanks for coming on once again for another edition of the Farm Report. Until we do it again next week, and see you then. We'll see you next week, Harry.
Thanks. Take care, and God bless.
Take care, Harry. Harry Siemens on this week's edition of the Farm Report, and had to, you know, on display the name there because it was blocking the view of Harry's face. So want to see that man's face. He was looking very good today on the Farm Report. And yeah, great to have him on as always to talk about the latest things happening in agriculture. Stay tuned for next week on Manitoba's show, right here to start off on Wednesday on next week's edition. As always, as Harry will be joining another edition of the Farm Report coming up next week. So staying in the present now, though, talking about some hockey and talking to my favorite person from Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy and Gordie Tumilson, goalie coach and marketing director. Gordie is going to be joining the show next to talk about the past weekend of games for all three teams in the Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, as well as talking about the new U18 Prep Male team that the Academy has coming into Pilot-Mound coming up starting next year, as well as some other stuff as well. So stay tuned for that with me and Gordie coming up on this week's edition of the Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy segment here on Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. Hockey Academy goalie coach and marketing director Gordie Tumilson joining the show here on this Wednesday morning on Rise and Shine. Gordie, all three teams in the academy were in action this past weekend. Let's start off with the U17 group, though, from the Pilot-Mound Hockey Academy for the Buffaloes, as they were at home for the first time in 2022. Taking on the Prairie Hockey Academy U17 prep team, winning the first game of their weekend out of the two that they played on Saturday, 6-2. 5-2. And then you take a look at Sunday's game. They didn't fare so well in that one, losing 6-1. But overall, the weekend from the U17s, how they're feeling after this past weekend.
Well, it's an up and down weekend, kind of a roller coaster thing for them. Great game on Saturday. Knocked off a pretty good hockey team in Prairie, and then we played very poorly. Not a lot of energy in the second game. Don't understand that. They're young guys. They should just be going hard and just enjoying the games. But great game on Saturday. Our guys played really good. Got off to a quick start, and then played pretty well defensively for the rest of the hockey games. And so that was sort of the nature of the beast there. And again, we didn't have much jump on the Sunday game. Don't understand that again, but we fell way short on that particular night. So there you go. That's kind of a kids hockey weekend. That's how it goes.
Yeah, and unfortunate they weren't able to show that same consistency as they did in their game from Saturday's game into Sunday's matchup. Like you said, not showing the same energy in that matchup on Sunday. But for the Buffaloes, this U17 group, they were at home for the first time in 2022 after being on the road for their first two regular season games against Notre Dame earlier on in the year, near the start of January. How nice it was for them to finally be back on home ice.
Oh, sure. I mean, the kids enjoy playing at home. They don't have to get on a bus and go somewhere and get in a hotel room. I mean, that fun stuff ended in October after 2 or 3 trips, and then it just becomes sort of a mundane every second weekend or every weekend for the last little while to be going away somewhere. So playing at home is always a neat time. You get to use their own dressing room, sleep in their own rooms. Doing their studies during the day, they've got their own, all their stuff's contained in their rooms, etc. It's just way better being at home.
Yeah, and for the Buffaloes, they still remain in 10th place after this past week and extending their win total to 5 on the season. Talking about the U15 group now, the male prep Buffaloes, or the prep male Buffaloes, U15 prep male Buffaloes. They were in Wilcox, Saskatchewan. No, just kidding. They were in Winnipeg at the rink playing 3 games this past weekend. Talk about, the past weekend for the U15s, having a close game in there, but also losing pretty convincingly in 2 of their games.
Yeah, games 1 and 3, we got kicked pretty badly by 7 or 8 goals in the first game, and then by 14 in the second game. We played, it was U15s against Alberta, and the 3 teams from Alberta just really took it to us. So that's the way that goes. Big cities out there that have access to all sorts of quality players right at home. They don't have to travel anywhere. COVID doesn't get in the way of the kind of things they're doing. So, our little guys, first year in the league, just developing a team. We've got younger players, hoping that they're going to stick around for a second year, most of them. And so, you take it on the chin the first year for sure, just be with those kinds of circumstances. And so, we got beat pretty badly. The second game in the middle of the thing, it was much closer. And so we had some good times in the rink, even though we got beat. Some of the things that we saw, of course, were good. The players, get a chance to play against really good players, and they get to see what the bar looks like. These teams really set the bar high, and the players set the bar high in terms of quality and whatnot. And there were a lot of scouts out there. I think the building was full of scouts, from every junior team in Manitoba and all of the Western Hockey League teams. And so our guys got a chance to showcase their individual skills, even though we didn't do as well on the rink as we'd like to have.
Yeah, and for the U15s, they will have all their games left in the regular season to play against CSSHL opponents, except for their last 2 games on the schedule at this point, on March 19th and March 20th against the Southwest Cougars. But talking about that aspect of having scouts at the game, was there anybody in particular that the scouts told you that they liked this past weekend, or what went down there?
Well, it was interesting. I had a chance to talk to almost every one of the guys over the weekend, and it was great. I know most of them from the past, and they're looking at half a dozen of our players. Of course, they're looking at the goalies always. Goalies are they're sort of isolated, and they get a chance to look, especially our goalies, because they had so much work to do. But certainly, our defensive group, Sutherland and Carroll's. Bo Murray, Chartrand, and Kelly are 3 guys in the forward line that they were looking at real heavy, and then a couple of other guys as well, May and for sure. So there's probably a half a dozen kids that all of the scouts were taking a good hard look at, and of course they'll look at them again next year and every other year. There's a draft year coming up for some of the kids, so they'll take a look at all these kids, and if they don't get drafted, that's okay. A lot of guys make the NHL that don't get drafted, so it's not the end all and be all. It's a nice little thing to have, but we don't worry about it from a coaching staff. We tell the kids not to worry about, moms and dads not to worry about it, but sometimes it takes over their mindset too much. But anyway, the scouts, we're looking at a good half dozen, 10 players on our team.
Yeah, like you said, the WHL, if a player doesn't get drafted, they're not the end of the line for them in their hockey career if that doesn't work out for them. But going into the U18 Prep Female program now, they were in Delta, BC for 3 games this past weekend. They lost all of them, and the last one being Heartbreakers. They were up in that game late and gave up a 2-goal lead and ended up losing in extra time to the South Alberta Hockey-Academy. But overall, talk about the past weekend for the U18 Prep Female team.
Well, certainly more character building scenarios going on with this team. All of our teams, again, took it on the chin a little bit the weekend, except for the one win. Building characters, part of the deal, part of building people. The girls played pretty well all 3 games. They weren't terrible, and all 3 games were fairly close. The last game, of course, the one we could have won, up 3-1 with 3 minutes to go in the hockey game, and losing it 4-3 in overtime. after taking an unfortunate penalty and having the other team pull the goalie and manage to score on us. So, again, character building. We were very close. The kids gave it everything they had. They were tired, they were beat, but they battled right to the end and played that overtime period. So, all in all, a positive weekend for the girls program for sure.
Yeah, and unfortunate they weren't able to hold that lead against South Alberta, the South Alberta Hockey-Academy, but with 4 games left on their schedule before their playoffs hit, what's going to be the biggest emphasis for the U18s at this point in the season to get ready for the playoffs?
Well, they continue their conditioning and whatnot. And then, of course, still working on individual skills. As a team, we work on passing, all the passing breakouts and all that stuff, penalty kill, where you're setting up and what the other teams are doing. So we got a little bit of information about what the other teams do now as we get further into the season and getting close to the playoffs. And then we work on individual skills because it's a 2-part, we have a 2-part program for kids. One part is winning hockey games if we can. But more importantly, we're building hockey players and people, and so that's important. How we respond on the bench to adversity or to good things, those kinds of things are always important, and we're always working on that stuff as part of our teaching individuals and the whole group as a team. So yeah, there's lots going on, and we're committed to making sure that when the kids leave us, whenever that may be, after 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, that they're better, much better at what they than when they came in and played the program.
Speaking of a U18 team, the Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy announcing on Saturday and on ASTV, it was announced just before the game started between the U17 and PHA team by Rod Collins that a U18 Prep Male team is being added to the Academy. Congratulations to you guys on getting that in place. But as you being the marketing director, Gordie, where does the plans lie now in terms of where do you guys go from now in terms of the marketing side of things for trying to bring players here?
Well, our marketing program has 2 parts. One is to tell people what we've been doing, and the other part is to get people to know who we are. And so we can attract players and attract teams to picking up our players. So we have a scouting side to our marketing detail, and then we also have a placement. So it's scouting and placement as part of our marketing program. We're just always talking to hockey people and parents somewhere in North America, and again, we had a kid from Taiwan, and we've got a player from Belgium. So we had players from Australia and England before. So we're talking to people in Europe and in other foreign countries. It's a big task. We're going to have 80 players here next year. We've got a new set of dorms going up, so that's a really big plus for that group, and we hope that attracts some players to us. We're going to be by COVID. I promised that. So. And I know Rod would be happy to have that happen. We lost probably 10 players in each of our 3 teams, coming into the season that we had identified last year in the spring that did not come to our program. So we were hurt by that by a little bit. But nonetheless, we got great kids now. And because of our marketing and our scouting and our placement programs, we've got a good name in the community and the hockey community, North America wise. And we keep promoting our place in the hockey world.
Yeah, and for my conversation I had with Rod on Saturday, during the first intermission of the game, he said that he's gonna, you guys are gonna bring the players down to have some skates at the Blackjack Stewart Arena and show what the players what Pilot-Mound is all about, which I think is great, being able to, give those players that opportunity to be able to do that and see Pilot-Mound firsthand for themselves. Gordie, let's talk about this week of practice coming up for the Academy. What's going to be worked on for the 3 teams?
Well, again, I think it's kind of the same. I mean, we're going to be probably zeroing in a little bit more on specialty teams. That has not been something our coaches have worked an awful lot on. They've done some things, but it's time now that we put those things in place. And because we know better how the other teams are on the power play or running their penalty kill, we have a better idea of how to get ourselves ready for those kinds of situations and being able to adjust, etc. Certainly, being the one-on-one drills that we do, the tougher drills that we try and work on, so that our players are not beaten by the other team, so we don't lose the puck as often in places where it's tough on us and behind our net in the corners. And always working on other skills, passing, shooting, stick handling, of course, are always going. All team stuff, read and react things. That's all part of our every practice, although we focus on specific things at each practice. Those are the kind of things that we do. And of course, again, the conditioning is really important, even more so this year, because of our talent level is not as high as we'd like it to be. So we'd like it to, we need to be in better shape and be able to chase people down.
Right, for sure. All things that will, hopefully benefit this team heading into this weekend for the teams that are playing and into the rest of the season. But Gordie, talking about the goalie meetings, what's on tap for that this week?
Yeah, the goalie meetings are. We're going to have some individual meetings. We had some good games on the weekend, and we had some struggles. So, we're going to go on the ice, of course, and do our thing there. Trying to keep reminding the kids as to what is successful for them, what's been successful for them, and how to continue to prepare for practice and games. And so that's on ice business is ongoing, but the individual meetings, we're going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes with each player, just going over things that may be bothering them or that are really good. We try and get a balance and go, we don't want to be too high. We don't want to be too low. It's a fun place to be. Every athlete needs to be balanced in their approach to the game. Until you win the championship, you've really done nothing. And you got to keep your focus, and you got to keep, what's important, relatable. And when we do that, we're pretty darn good in goal. When we get ahead of ourselves, or we start to worry too much, or we feel bad about a goal or something like that, then we struggle a little bit. And so I think we're in that pre-playoff mode where we just want to be strong mentally, play every game as hard as we can, do the best we can, and see what the outcome is.
Talking about the weekend of games coming up for the Academy, only two of the three teams will be in action for Pilot-Mound coming up this weekend. The U18 Prep Female program will be at Blackjack Stewart Arena to play the Rink Hockey-Academy. The U17 Prep Male Buffaloes will be traveling to Cairnport, Saskatchewan. And for the U15s, they're not playing on the weekend, but they'll be playing later on today at 4:30 p.m. At Blackjack Stewart Arena, facing off in their matchup coming up against the Rink Hockey-Academy. So take us through, the weekend of games coming up, as well as this one for the U15s coming up later today.
Yeah, tonight's game with the Rink is part of a 3-game postponement that COVID sort of jumped in and beat us up on a couple of weeks ago. So we've planned the games for 4:30 on Wednesdays for the next 3 Wednesdays at Blackjack Stewart. So the Rink's going to travel out and come and play our guys. They've got a great hockey team there. So our guys are going to be pressed to be good, but that's okay. And then we'll have another week to train and get better. The kids don't play this, the U15s don't play this weekend, but every other weekend after this one, right to the end of March. So before school break comes at Easter time there. So they're going to be busy after this, but just the one game this week for them. Wednesday, the U18s girls are at home against the Rink Academy as well, Saturday afternoon at 2 and Sunday at 3. And again, the Rink Academy got good programs, having their facility in a big city, Winnipeg in this case. They have an advantage of talent pool that just is unrelenting when it comes to playing against them. So that's why our work is cut out for us on the marketing and scouting side. But in the meantime, we play them twice. They'll travel out 2 times to play us. And then the U17 boys are in Cairnport to play some CSSL teams and games, and looking forward to that and some competitive games. Getting our game sharpened up so that we're able to function well in the playoffs.
Well, it's going to be a exciting time to be back in Pilot-Mound for ASTV coming up this Saturday and Sunday as we'll be there. Our production crew will be there for those two games that the U18 Prep Female Buffaloes are playing, as well as the Rink Hockey Academy, as they'll be coming into Pilot-Mound to play the female Buffaloes. But Gordie, thanks for coming on this Wednesday, as always, and talking about Pilot-Mound Hockey Academy hockey. Until next week on the show, when we see you again next Wednesday, I'll see you then, Gordie.
Yeah, I look forward to you and your crew, Graeme. It's always fun to have you out there. Thanks.
Gordie Tumilson on this week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba on the Pilot-Mound Hockey Academy segment. And yeah, 2 games for the female Buffaloes, the U18 Prep Female Buffaloes coming up this weekend. On Saturday and Sunday, they will be at home to play against the Rink Hockey Academy's team. Be sure to tune into ASTV Productions at 2 p.m. on Saturday for the first matchup of the two this weekend that those two teams are playing against each other, as well as tune in at 3 p.m. on Sunday afternoon to watch the final game between those two as they will play this weekend, the U18 Prep Female Buffaloes and the Rink Hockey Academy. But speaking of today's game at 4:30 p.m., like Gordie mentioned and like was mentioned throughout that segment, talking about the U15s, the U15 Prep Male Buffaloes from Pilot-Mound Hockey Academy will be taking on the Rink Hockey Academy U15 team at 4:30 p.m. today here on the network on ASTV Productions. But to continue here on Rise and Shine Manitoba now, it's this week's edition of the Farm Report with Evolution Greenworks host here on the network, Lorena Mitchell. She's going to be giving a farm report after this commercial break here on Manitoba Show, Rise and Shine Manitoba here on ASTV Productions. Stick around for more after the break.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance, quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
Good morning, Manitoba, and Rise and Shine. Hey, Graeme. I hope everything is going great for you. We are enjoying above average temperatures this week. It is just amazing. I've been going out for walks. I don't know about you. I'm just getting over COVID, so I'm starting to get my strength back, which is nice. So everybody, feel free to get outside. Friday, it's going to start dipping down just a little bit, well, a lot of bit colder. We're going to be into average temperatures for the weekend. And it's then going to start warming up again. So, we're hopeful that we're going to be over the really blasting cold, but Friday it is, we're going to dip down into with the wind chills about -30. So we're not quite there yet, but this week was a really nice reprieve, and we are going to have sunshine this weekend with those average temperatures with a low of -19 on Saturday. And yeah, so it's just really going to be quite nice. I'm just going to bring up our screen share because we want to take a look at the solar activity. There's a lot of people talking about auroras this week. And really, that's not what we're having here. Just a sec here. Looks like I'm having a little bit of a technical issue here. Just hang on here, and we are gonna be. Oh, okay, getting it sorted here. Yeah, it's definitely going to be some beautiful temperatures. Here we go. Coming up on the 14-day for sure, we're seeing it. So if we're looking, we're just going to be slightly below average for Saturday, and it's a high of -17 and a low of -22. It looks like they've changed that since I looked at it earlier this morning. Sunday, of course, is minus 13 Celsius for a high, and so is Monday. So we've got like probably 4 days of mostly sun. Friday's going to be fully sunny, so that's going to be very, very exciting. So if we are looking at the auroras, we've been having some really huge activity on the sun. And earlier this week, we had actually snapped off quite a big CME. And I just wanted to show you down here. You can actually see the impact in orange right here. And so we had a mid-level CME hit the earth from the sun. Impact hit us on the 9th, and it came a little bit quicker than NASA actually thought it would, landing here on the 9th rather than the 10th. So the speed was there. As far as I understand, it was just radio disruption this time around, which is great. But we've seen a very, very active sun. So it's, looking to the sky, yes, but right now we're going to be a little bit calm for the next few days. And as you can see, we are quiet all the way into, well, most of us are sitting in the suburban areas. So we're not really going to see any northern lights or anything like that, or have anything to worry about for electronics or radio traffic. In the solar report, there isn't a whole lot about solar this time around, just because with the, convoy and stuff like that, the government really hasn't been putting out we've been absolutely hoping for that interest-free loan to come to fruition for lowering your energy footprint in your home through the CMHC site. So if you want to go on to CMHC, go and sign up. You can actually sign up for the newsletter, and it will actually let you know when that loan has started. And you'll be able to utilize that for anything that will reduce your energy footprint. Could be for new windows, could be, doors, insulation, any of those types of things, so that you are using less energy in your home, including switching types of heating and those types of things. But of course, you can always use it for solar systems, battery systems, or anything pertaining to creating energy. So it's just going to be short and sweet this week, but it was really nice coming on here today and giving you a heads up. We are looking at a little bit of cloud and snow for today, but we're still looking at only, about -7 Celsius for today. So it's still a good day. Everybody get out and have a walk in that kind of fluffy, beautiful snow. It's not like, that wet stuff. So it's just that almost like Christmas snow, Graeme. Anyways, thanks a lot. And we'll see you next week for the Solar Report.
Lorena Mitchell on this week's edition of the Solar Report. By the way, Lorena, good morning to you. Even though we did not talk face-to-face this morning, great to have you on this week's edition of Manitoba Show, Rise and Shine Manitoba, to give us the update on the Solar Report, the weather, what we should be expecting. And yeah, it has been nice to have this warm weather, being able to actually go outside and not wear a jacket and not wear mitts. Seems like this is the time of year where the weather starts to change, and seems like we are seeing that in terms of the change in temperature. Gotten a lot of snow this winter, which is also nice to see, except for if you're driving on the highways. and in other parts of the city, that's been one downfall of it all. But yeah, Lorena Mitchell on this week's edition of the Solar Report, giving us an update on everything solar. And yeah, going to be excited to see if she'll be on the show next week or in 2 weeks coming up, but we'll update you guys on that coming up for next week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. But coming up after the commercial break now, I'm going to be joined by Seth Rach on the first part of 2 in this week's edition of Graeme's Opinion to talk about the Winnipeg Jets, talking about some of the top players on the trade deadline, trade bait board, as well as talking about the NHL All-Star Game weekend and some other stuff as well in part 1 of Graeme's Opinion coming up on ASTV Productions here on Rise and Shine Manitoba.
Hello, my name is Lorena Mitchell, owner of Evolve Green. And here at Evolve Green, we take the environment very seriously. We have a 10 kilowatt solar system that offsets our main facility by 75%, as well as maintaining natural prairie on our grounds. Our mission, creating renewables that work for you. I started Evolve Green in 2008 with a passion for the environment and wanting to change my corner of the world. And that remains the same today. Through design, consult, and installation, we provide renewable energy systems and storage integration. Here at Evolve Green, we help Canadians rethink power and storage to help fortify our children's future. To learn more, visit evolvegreen.ca.
Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. Lorena Mitchell joined the show most recently on a on a live edition of the Solar Report, not one where I was asking her questions, but rather she was going solo in that one, and that segment was, of course, live. Also had a chance to talk to Gordie Tumilson today of Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, as well as Harry Siemens, so special thanks to those three for taking the time out of their Wednesday and joining Rise and Shine Manitoba this morning on February 9th. And speaking of this next guest that's coming on, not going to be interviewing him, but we're going to be discussing a lot of hockey. It's Seth Rach. Seth joining this week's edition of Graeme's Opinion. Seth, how you doing, man? I see you got the Josh Morrissey in the background, the nice studio sign that you got as well. I'm sure that you're ready to go to talk some positives about the Winnipeg Jets this morning as they won 2-0 yesterday against the Minnesota Wild. But how you doing on this Wednesday, man?
Oh yeah, a lot better that they won actually. Just getting a little bit nervous before last night, but it seemed like they got into themselves quite fine.
Yeah, and in yesterday's game, the Jets, of course, won it 2-0. Nate Schmidt added an empty netter assisted by Connor and Brendan Dillon. They also had an empty netter from Paul Stastny that got called off due to an offside, but the Jets outshot the Minnesota Wild in this game 29-27, went 1 for 4 on the power play, but I felt like they worked it around well on the power play, a lot better than we've seen in a while on the power play. And of course, Scheifele scored the first goal to open up this game on the power play for the Jets, and the Jets only took one penalty in this game, but were able to kill it off. Seth, just looking at yesterday's performance, obviously you'd like to see a bit more offense from the Jets and them extending their 1-0 lead, not just a 2-0, but overall the game you saw yesterday from the Jets.
Yeah, I thought it was very good. One thing I didn't think was very good about the game that wasn't the Jets or the Wild was the officiating. I thought the officiating was pretty terrible last night, and you could say that about a lot of NHL games over the past year and a half. But to me, it seemed especially bad last night, and that's just the officiating now. So we'll go back to the Jets. I thought the Jets played a good solid game. And I thought, they out of both teams, on a quality scoring chances go, I think the Jets actually did better than the Wild as far as quality scoring chances go, and that's something we haven't been able to say for a while with the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, and I thought that the Jets did create a lot of high quality scoring chances, just could not finish on a lot of those chances except for the power play goal that Mark Scheifele had. Of course, the Jets got an empty net goal, but that was from outside the zone, so you can't really call that a high quality scoring chance for the Jets there. But Nate Schmidt, lobbing that one into net or putting that one into net from outside the zone. But, Minnesota, they had their chances too in this game. But when the Jets did break down, which I didn't find they broke down too often in this game defensively, which was nice to see. Hellebuck was on his game and was able to stop it. He got the first star in this game. But I felt like the team defense from the Jets was refreshing in this game. A lot more tighter defense, a lot more assignment sound that resulted in some good things. The Jets special teams I thought looked good, even though they were only able to score one goal on the power play. I thought that they moved it around extremely well and created a lot of good chances for themselves. Just one thing that you can take away from this game, I think, as a negative from the Jets is just that inability to extend leads. I think it's something that has been happening this year when they are up in games. They're just not able to extend it. Rather, if they're, sitting back a bit or just not able to, solve the goaltender. I think the second part of what I said there was true in yesterday's game. Just couldn't find a way to get it by Kakkonen. But I like the chances that the Jets were getting. One thing that I think was stupid was Foligno. Adam Lowry on the ice. I heard that he's getting a hearing, which is great. But why would you do that? That's just a boneheaded play there, especially, while they were fighting. But overall, the Jets in this game, I thought played extremely well. And, Perfetti continuing to play strongly. I thought Heinola and Kovacevic's game, they were really good yesterday. Heinola having some good chances. And, I got to give it to the captain, Blake Wheeler, as he looked good in the defensive zone yesterday and was also pretty effective on the power play as well.
Yeah, Blake Wheeler, he has a lot of critics, and it's fair enough, some of the criticism that goes around. He's getting older, so he's starting to slow down a little bit. But I still think the guy's great, especially in the offensive zone, on that power play, having him it just seems wherever he is on the power play, he makes the right decision the majority of the time. And yesterday he was making a lot of crisp passes, and I thought he had a really good game. And you talk about Cole Perfetti, and I agree. He had an unbelievable game, one of his better ones on the year so far. Fortunately, he wasn't able to get a point, but he made so many right plays, and he made some good defensive plays in his own zone with his stick, being able to turn a puck over and get an odd-man rush. And unfortunately, the Jets weren't able to capitalize on it, but it was still a great effort by Cole Perfetti. And I don't know how Ville Heinola didn't score last night. He had a wide open cage and just barely missed it. And you could see him kind of react to it on the play, and it was kind of funny. But Heinola had like about 7 or 8 shot attempts. He was really trying to get a goal that game, it seemed like.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to get out of Ville Heinola. A good defenseman in terms of transition out of his own end, making the right pass, the right first pass, but also in the offensive zone, activating into the zone and being able to be aggressive and, get his chances on net. Like yesterday, you said, Seth, about 8 shot attempts for him. He put 4 on net. But Blake Wheeler, I have been harsh on Blake Wheeler this season, and I think there's good reason that comes to that. I don't think he's the same player as he once was, but I think yesterday he was doing a lot of the little things right. That power play goal that the Jets got, it was him on the forecheck that was able to allow for Kyle Connor to come down and get that puck. And I thought yesterday he looked better than he has been times on the power play this season. I really like Cole Perfetti's game too, like expanding on it, getting more comfortable, and he's just playing better and better every single game. You can just see the confidence growing in his game too, which, allows for him to, play his game. I think that his IQ's at a high level already. The creativity is there. And I also think that Connor and Perfetti, their chemistry is continuing to grow, which is absolutely fantastic for the future, especially.
Yeah, and especially when you got the passer in Cole Perfetti and the shooter in Kyle Connor, that's only going to help for the future, like you said. And if they get there, they just need to develop. They've already got a really good chemistry, but if they just keep developing throughout the year, I don't see how Perfetti's going to get sent down anymore. A few games ago, I thought, I wouldn't be surprised if they did still send him down, but now, it seems like he's in he's a real integral piece to the team. He's playing on the second power play every night, so he has a good spot with the team. And I'm gonna stray a little bit away from those guys because, man, there were some heavyweight bouts in that game, especially at the beginning of the game with two fights at the same time. Lowry kind of ragdolling Foligno at the beginning of that was pretty funny. And then, just some spirited bouts.
Yeah, and you got to love the spirited bouts. Sometimes you don't see them in a game, especially in today's NHL. But yesterday it was definitely on full display. And Lowry and Foligno, I didn't catch all of this game, but they fought twice in yesterday's game? Is that?
I didn't catch all of it either, but I remember when I got home, my dad was talking about, Lowry fought Foligno again, and I thought that was pretty funny. And maybe this Winnipeg Minnesota rivalry is going to start heating up, because I would definitely love to see it, and especially because we play them again next week.
Yeah, going back to that 2017-18 first-round matchup for the Jets is when they played Minnesota then. That was heated. I mean, that whole series, and then all the matchups it seems like the Jets have had against Minnesota in my most recent memory have been pretty heated battles. Don't want to talk about that 7-1 loss the Jets had earlier this season on Black Friday, but the Jets yesterday, I think, played a pretty solid game. And I did, like the Jets' attention to detail yesterday in the D zone in yesterday's game, just playing as more of a unit back there, being able to let some pressure off of the Jets defense. I think that's something that you don't see sometimes from the Jets that they don't do consistently, is playing as a good defensive unit in the defensive zone. I thought the gap play from the Jets was really good as well yesterday. It's just, after having a week off, having a lot of time off, you got to question if the Jets can keep up this consistency, as we haven't seen them be consistently able to play at a high level this season, hoping that is able to continue for the next little while here.
Yeah, I agree. And I know personally you are not a big fan of Craig Button. I respect that opinion, but I think he had nailed it yesterday after the first period, what he said about the Jets and their defensive zone play recently, just not looking like they're on the same page. And it's just kind of been a whole, like, once they get into the defensive zone, it's just kind of like players running around not knowing their assignments. And for the most part, when it has been happening, that stuff has been happening. And for a little bit in yesterday's game in the first period, it was the same thing. But, they started to shore things up in the second period. And then in the third period, I thought they really took control in the third period.
Yeah, and I will say this. I don't agree with everything Craig Button says, but I do agree with him on what he's been saying about the Jets, about what he's been saying about just their consistency. And I think that has been a huge problem from this team dating back to the 2018-19 season, the second half of that year, when the Jets, would show really good stuff, but then they'd fall apart for one period and blow a lead. I mean, yesterday's game, you look at the Jets, they played pretty strong throughout all periods in the game, of course, getting outshot in the second period by Minnesota, but able to outshoot Minnesota by 2 shots. Hellebuyck playing on top of his game when he needed to. This team overall playing really strong in front of him, I thought. And I think the young guys in this lineup, were impressive to me. Just knowing that they're young guys, knowing that Perfetti's been having an impact, as well as Heinola. And I like Kovacevic's game as well yesterday. A guy that can, get into shooting lanes, a guy that's a big body, and a guy that can do really good things at all ends of the ice.
Yeah, Kovacevic's a pretty underrated guy so far as Jets prospects go. And he's one of those guys that we need. He's a right shot defenseman. He can certainly fill a role when he needs to on this team. The amount of defensemen that we have on this team that can play in the NHL is just insane. It's just finding the consistency, like you said, as far as defensive zone play goes. And I think Kovacevic has a real chance, in the upcoming few years or so, he could be a full NHL ready defenseman, whether that's with the Jets or whether it's with a different team. He works awfully hard, and it's good to see him progress the way he has been. And another player I think had a great game yesterday was Christian Reichel. He had an unbelievable between the legs pass to, I believe it was Adam Lowry at one point in the game. You don't really see that from a guy like Christian Reichel, but it's cool to see that he shows off his skill set a little bit more.
Yeah, and that play just an example of the Jets working it around quickly in the zone, right? Quick, efficient passes, and I thought that they did that on the power play as well too in yesterday's game, even though they were only able to get one goal. I think it was Kopp in tight instead of taking a shot where you would have a lower chance of scoring. He kicks it out to Kyle Connor, and he gets a good shot on net, even though he didn't score that one and didn't score on the night. Kyle Connor's still having a strong game. And yeah, a lot of Jets had good games yesterday. Hoping that it continues into the upcoming games in the schedule. As on Friday, they'll be on the road in Dallas to play the Stars at 7:30. Right back at it against the Nashville Predators in Nashville at 6 p.m. on Saturday. And talking about the upcoming game they got on Monday against the Chicago Blackhawks as well. I mean, you look at the standings here in the NHL, looking at the Central Division, the Jets behind the Dallas Stars and the Nashville Predators, as the Nashville Predators are in second place, but they are in front of the Chicago Blackhawks. So Jets looking for some more wins on their schedule here, trying to fight back into potentially being in that playoff spot.
Yeah, these are must-win games, especially when they're against divisional foes like we're facing in the Stars, Blackhawks, and Predators. But yeah, big games. And you think against the Blackhawks, you definitely want to see a win in that game. But it'd be big to knock off a team like Nashville, who's had a very solid season so far, and Dallas, who's been on and off, who's been kind of inconsistent like the Jets have as well.
Yeah, and the last time the Jets played Nashville, they had a not so good first period, but overall after that game, they ended up out shooting Nashville in that game and ended up getting a lot of good scoring chances. Just could not beat UC Saros. So the Jets, did a lot of good things in yesterday's game, not very much bad. And yeah, I think the only criticism you could have in that game yesterday is them extending leads, that inability that they've had, it seems, so far this season at this point. But it will be interesting to see what will happen for the Jets coming up against these three Central Division opponents. Talking about the NHL All-Star Game now, Seth. All-Star Game weekend in the NHL has concluded. Of course, on Friday night, they did the skills competition. On Saturday, they had the games. I'm pretty sure Team Metro won, and Claude Giroux ended up winning All-Star Game MVP. But looking at the winners from the All-Star competition, Jordan Kyrou, a bit of a surprise, even though he is very fast. Did not expect him to win fastest skater, and he did. Victor Hedman won the hardest shot. Vasilevsky and Jack Campbell won the save streak competition. Pietrangelo won the breakaway challenge, which we will get into that and the problem I had with that, with him being named the winner. But Sebastian Aho won the accuracy shooting competition. Werenski won the passing competition, and Pavelski won the 21 and 22 competition. And talking about the passing competition and the 21 and 22 competition, they've done the passing competition before, just differently. They did it outside by the fountains in Vegas, which I thought was pretty cool. And for the 21 and 22 challenge, Seth, they did a bit of blackjack, shooting at big cards and trying to get the best cards possible. Talk about those two challenges, those two competitions. Your thoughts on them?
To be honest with you, I didn't even get to see highlights of those two competitions, so I don't know much about what happened there. But I do know that they were really going with the all gun-ho Vegas theme, because, man, there was a lot of Vegas-themed stuff in this All-Star Game.
Yeah, and I thought the passing competition was pretty cool for the players to be outside in Vegas by the fountains, shooting into like face-off circles that they made was pretty cool. Olympic gold, or an Olympic medalist. I know that your family, Seth, has a connection to them a bit. I forget her name now, Lamoureux. She did very good in that passing competition. Of course, Werenski won it, and just insane how accurate these passers are in the NHL and seeing it on full display. But the 21 and 22 challenge, I thought was great. You're in Vegas, why not, include a game that's played at the casinos in it, like blackjack, and see who wins it. And I thought Austin Matthews or Steven Stamkos would win that, but Pavelski, showed that old dog still has some game in him. Talking about the breakaway challenge now, though, man, Pietrangelo, I'm not sure if you were able to watch this, but so many cool ideas that were done in this shootout competition, this breakaway challenge. Trevor Zegras by far had the most impressive goal out there. channeling his inner Peter LaFleur from Dodgeball, the movie. But Pietrangelo, the hometown guy, not the hometown guy, but the home team hometown guy, I guess we could call it that, ends up winning it, and he had the worst move of the night. I feel like it was scripted, but that was definitely a problem for me because I thought everyone that went in the competition to that point should have deserved it over Pietrangelo, but I feel like they gave it to him just because they're in Vegas.
Yeah, it's I'm going to be completely honest here. I'm not a very big fan of the All-Star weekend that the NHL does. I don't really like a lot of the things they do there, and like simple things like that, where you get the hometown guy to win just because he's from the hometown, or a few years back, the Tampa Bay one having like practically the whole Tampa Bay Lightning team at the All-Star game and like ignoring half the other players that are having great seasons. Just some of the decisions that are like that have kind of really maybe not too interested with the All-Star game, but I still do pay attention. I try to pay attention to most of the skills competition, and I just don't think I think they should have given it to the best move that was Trevor Zegras' move, but it's Vegas, so they're going to give it to their hometown or their home team boy.
Yeah, I think the All-Star competition is really just a weekend of fun, right? I mean, I don't really think these guys care who won, but from a viewer's perspective, like Pietrangelo winning that was highway robbery on a guy like Zegras. DeBrincat was really creative with what he did, channeling the inner Hangover fan that he is, or being in Vegas, the Hangover, the first movie being based in Vegas. Pretty cool to see that, and as well as the Las Vegas Raiders football team come out to help him out with that, as well as Jack Hughes, pulling out his magician-like abilities and making mini Jack Hughes appear. That was pretty cool. I like the creativity there, but yeah, all the creativity, and then just seeing Pietrangelo, it was the least creative in my opinion. I thought that was my biggest issue with it. But Victor Hedman was the favorite going into the hardest shot competition. He ended up winning that one against Tom Wilson, Timo Meyer, and Adam Pelech. Hedman proving that he was right to be considered the favorite in that one. Hey.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think anyone really had thought, at least for me, like when I saw who was competing in the slap shot competition, I was a little bit disappointed by the size of it. And then I saw, I don't think anyone's going to come close to beating Hedman here. He's easily the biggest, strongest guy that's participating in this category. So I think it's he's probably the clear winner, and he did end up winning. Still kind of disappointed that we didn't or not disappointed, still kind of surprised that Adam Pelech made the all-star team or all-star weekend where Barzal didn't, but he did pretty good in the slap shot competition, so I can't complain with any of that.
Yeah, and I was thinking there should be more participants in the hardest shooting competition, hardest shot competition, but at the same time, I guess you want to pick like the hardest of the hardest shots out there, right? So maybe that's why that competition doesn't have as many contestants as the other ones. Talking about fastest skater here to end off, talking about the All-Star weekend. Jordan Kyrou won the fastest skater with a 13.550 lap time. Incredible. He ended up beating out a guy like Connor McDavid. Of course, Kyle Connor didn't do the greatest, but beating out all the competition was Jordan Kyrou. I mean, how impressed you were by his performance in that competition?
I'm pretty impressed, and considering Jordan Kyrou, a pretty big guy, you wouldn't expect him to have the legs that he does, and yeah, he's a very fast skater. And when I made my prediction for this All-Star or for the speed competition, I actually decided to stay away from McDavid or Larkin just because, I had a feeling like McDavid would win, but I wanted to go with someone else. So I chose, I made my biased pick and chose Kyle Connor, and he did all right. I mean, he didn't do the greatest, but he still beat some of the guys there. And I think if they had a speed competition with the puck, I think he'd definitely be one of the top guys in the league as far as speed with the puck goes.
Yeah, and Jordan Kyrou beat out some pretty darn good competition. He beat out Adrian Kempe, who finished Not far behind him, 13.585. He beat out Chris Kreider, Connor McDavid, Cale Makar, Kyle Connor, and Dylan Larkin, and Evgeny Kuznetsov. So some speed burners there that Kyrou bested this past Friday night at the All-Star Game in Vegas.
Yeah, Kyrou, it's just interesting to see, this is definitely such a young man's game now. When you look at the former record of the fastest skater came from Mike Gartner, who was an older guy when he got this record. So it's definitely interesting to see how much the game has changed, and now you're seeing all young guys in the speed competition. And it makes me feel a little bit bad for a guy like Connor McDavid, who, yes, is so fast, but I'm sure would probably want to be in other competitions at this point rather than just the speed one. But, Jordan Kyrou coming up with the big upset victory, and he's turned a lot of heads this year.
Yeah, I would love to see McDavid in the breakaway competition.
Yeah,
that would be something to see. I'm not sure how creative his his move would be creative. I'm just trying to think how creative Connor McDavid could get in a type of challenge like that. But yeah, I agree. I feel like, for the fans, with this being the best player in the game as well, and Connor McDavid, would have been cool for the fans to see him in some more competitions, maybe the accuracy shooting competition as well. That could have been cool to see him in there. But of course, his teammate Draisaitl was in that competition. So I think that's going to do for our All-Star Game weekend talk. I'm not going to be honest. I did not watch the All-Star Game. I did not watch the highlights of it. But Giroux ended up winning it and winning the MVP. And I'm pretty sure Team Metro ended up winning it. But I'm not too sure off the top of my head. Talking about the NHL trade deadline now, I read something, and I was looking at just the players for that are at the top of the list, and I'm pretty surprised of the date of the trade deadline this season, because it's apparently on March 21st. Usually we get this trade deadline in February from what I remember, but March 21st, so we still got a lot of time until the trade deadline comes up. But taking a look at some of the players that I found atop of some of the top trade bait boards, Thomas Hertl is there, John Klingberg, Claude Giroux is in that mix as well. A guy like Ben Sherratt and Phil Kessel are there as well, and Jacob Chychrun are among some of the top guys. I know Giordano is also atop of some lists, just talking about the top 10 players that could go this trade deadline. But talking about it, what the trade deadline you think is going to shape up to, Seth? A lot of players could be moving to different places, and a lot of good players at that.
Yeah, definitely. It seems to look a lot more exciting than last year's trade deadline was, and that's a good news. That's good news for all hockey fans, depending on the kind of hockey fan you are. If you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, you're definitely not looking forward to the trade deadline day, to say the least. But just some of the names. I think when I think of this trade deadline, like some of the names you mentioned, like Claude Giroux and John Klingberg, especially John Klingberg, like that's a guy I think, man, he could really help impact the team that he goes to because of how good he is on both ends of the ice. We've seen him put up monster offensive seasons in the past, and we've also seen him have excellent defensive seasons in the past. So this is a guy that I've been really interested in his whole career, and I would really like to see. I'm really interested to see if he ends up going somewhere else.
Yeah, I heard. I was reading up on it. Apparently, Carolina is reportedly a team that has called Dallas about him. I mean, can you imagine Carolina being able to add John Klingberg in? I mean, he's going to be a rental at this point because he's going to be a UFA, but a good puck moving defenseman, also a guy who can quarterback a power play, and a guy who can play in your top four just like in an instant. I mean, with how deep Carolina is already, that if that ends up happening. Not making a prediction that he will be going to Carolina, but that would be just absolutely unreal for a team that's already so deep.
That team is already just miles above most teams in the NHL, and if they get a guy like John Klingberg, they might not be stopped this year. I love everything about the Carolina Hurricanes, and if they're even already, I think they could win the cup with the team that they have, and if they get a guy like John Klingberg, then. Yeah, I expect conference finals, nothing less than the conference finals for them.
Yeah, and I mean Carolina's a team that's been building and building throughout the years, right, of where they're at now. And yes, they did end up losing some pieces, but like a guy like Dougie Hamilton. But overall, that defense has been absolutely phenomenal. Still, I mean, you pair a guy like John Klingberg with Jakob Slavin, be able to allow Klingberg to, even though he is good on both ends of the ice, do what he does best with having a guy like Slavin there to, takes that load off of him defensively and be able to allow him to be that, true good puck moving defenseman that he is, a guy that can also produce offense. I mean, it could be scary if Carolina ends up getting John Klingberg for sure.
Or even seeing Klingberg play with a guy like Brett Pesce too, another really great defenseman on the Hurricanes. It feels like every defenseman on the Hurricanes is great in the defensive zone and also pretty good in the offensive zone. I cannot visualize most teams even standing a chance against this Carolina team already, even if they match up in the playoffs with them.
Yeah, and I mean Carolina's so deep from top to bottom, right? And Brett Pesce, I mean, pairing him with John Klingberg, just pair him with a guy that's that good defensive defenseman, and I feel like you could get a lot out of John Klingberg's game, even more than Dallas is getting out of his game right now. But talking about a guy like Ben Sherratt, a physical player that could be very well packing his bags and going somewhere else. I read something interesting. Could you imagine if Colorado goes in and trades for a guy like Ben Sherratt, adding some physicality to their blue line? I mean, this isn't the greatest defenseman in the world, but a guy that could offer some value in terms of that physical presence in Colorado, being a depth piece on their blue line as well.
Yeah, I think he could fit great. And one thing I do really appreciate, I think that's underappreciated about Ben Sherratt's game is, he's been very not so good defensively this year, but he's also been on a very horrible team in the Montreal Canadiens as well. That hasn't really given him much to work with, especially the guy's playing so many minutes. He's playing some of the most amount of minutes in the NHL right now. So the guy definitely has his work cut out for him in Montreal. So I think, he would fit in really well over there with Colorado. I think he could, even playing with a guy like right beside Cale Makar, just having that extra protection for Cale Makar when he's out there on the ice, even though Cale Makar's already a decently big guy, just having a big solid dude beside him like Ben Sherratt could really help out his game. And I think Cale Makar, he's already this unbelievable offensive defenseman. Imagine him, when if they do get Ben Sherratt, him being able to showcase his offense even more.
Yeah, I don't know, though. I would not split up Cale Makar and Devon Taves, who have been one of the league's best defensive pairings this season. But I do think that Sherratt could add value to that team, just beefing up that D-corps just a bit, having a physical presence out there, a guy who, can kill penalties, and also a guy that I think would be better suited as a depth piece as he is playing on Montreal's top pairing this season, which I don't think is the most ideal thing, but I think that Sherratt could be, a guy that could, potentially be paired alongside in that top four on that team, but more so a guy that'll be there as a good depth piece on their defensive core.
I just think of the amount of combinations they can do with their defense. And Colorado, they needed toughness on their blue line. Last year in the playoffs, they needed toughness on their blue line, and they didn't necessarily have it. And that's, there was also many other factors to why they lost to Vegas in that second round series last year. But I think toughness on the Avalanche is definitely a thing that they need more of. And a guy like Ben Sherratt could definitely help that.
We'll talk about one more player here. I mean, we'll talk about players that are featured atop of the list on trade deadline on the trade bait boards as time goes along here, all the way up until trade deadline day. But we could talk about Claude Giroux, but I want to talk about this guy, Thomas Hertl, a guy that is a UFA at the end of the season, has put up 22 goals this season, 16 assists for 38 points. A guy that a lot of teams seem to want to be going after, but a guy that has a lot of control in terms of how many teams he wants on his list, because he does have a no trade clause, but I believe he would be willing to move it if those three teams would be involved. A guy with seems like he has the most power out of any of the free agents at this point, and a guy that could be a very nice addition for a team that is in the playoff mix, that is looking to add some offense, some scoring power to their team.
Yeah, Thomas Hertl is like the perfect kind of playoff player you want on his team. He's an excellent power forward. He's not the tallest power forward in the league, but he's got some girth to him, and he's he does the perfect things. I just remember seeing him on the power play a few years ago in the playoffs, just him hovering around in the slot, waiting for a tip, doing the little things in front of the net. Thomas Hertl's a great player, and I think any team would love to have him, especially come playoff time where a guy like Thomas Hertl's going to perform in the playoffs.
Yeah, and he has shown that he's been able to perform in the playoffs, and he's not a guy that's over a point per game in his career, has been a point per game in any of the seasons he has played in his career, I believe, but he's also a guy that's hovering around almost, putting up a good amount of points, and a guy that is going to be a good piece to whatever team, is looking to buy and is looking to go big for a potential playoff run, adding some scoring in there. I mean, Thomas Hertl could be your guy, depending on, if he wants you on his list of teams that he wants to be traded to, that is.
Yeah, it all depends. Those no trade clauses are always tough because, it's hard to get players to want to move to a certain place, especially if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan. The struggles of no trade clauses and people wanting to come to Winnipeg. It's always been tough, but Thomas Hertl, whoever he decides to go to, that team's gonna be a lot better because he is a very underrated player, in my opinion. I really like Thomas Hertl's game, and I think he's the type of guy that you want on your team in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a team here now. They don't have the most cap space in the world, but it will be interesting to see if they'll make a move on him. Is the Boston Bruins, a team that is in a playoff spot at this point in the season, a team that has amazing players up front like Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and David Pastrnak, but a team that you could make the argument, I think it's there, that they lack depth. I mean, adding a guy like Thomas Hertl in, if they're able to make that happen, I think would be ideal for the Bruins. I mean, they'd get exactly what they want, and beef up some of their depth that maybe they haven't exactly been able to have in the past years.
Yeah, I think Thomas Hertl would be a perfect pick on the Boston Bruins. And he's a guy that can play wing and center. So you stick him on that second, you stick him on that second line center. Eric Hall has been doing pretty good in Boston, recently, but you get him on the second line center beside a guy like Taylor Hall, who's been fantastic in the past and who's been very good lately for the Bruins. That just picturing that right there is deadly.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see, of course, throughout the time here before trade deadline coming up. I'll give my predictions on where I think, guys like Thomas Hertl and, John Klingberg and Claude Giroux, Ben Sherrod, all those guys, where they might go, in my opinion. And Seth, I'm sure you'll do the same here on the show. And going to be excited to also talk about what we think the Jets should do come trade deadline when we do end up talking about the Jets, what their situation is looking like. But I do want to end off with ripping into a member of the Chicago Blackhawks, ripping into their staff.
I already know where this is going.
Yeah, you know where it's going, Seth. I did not save the video, so I do gotta search it up, but it's that Rocky Wirtz guy being an absolute moron. And
just completely tasteless.
Proven time and time again that it seems like, they're out of touch with what is going on.
Yeah, Father Time has easily gotten to him. He's too old to even function, it seems like. Guys shouldn't even be allowed to be on TV.
Yeah. Let's take a look. I cannot find the video, but basically I'll sum it up, right? This guy getting asked about, how are they looking to, handle this situation now with the, situation that went down with I'm forgetting the name. Kyle Beach, right?
Yeah.
my apologies to the Beach family, by the way, for not remembering his name, as he is, the guy who got sexually assaulted by video coach of the Chicago Blackhawks at the time in 2010 in Aldrich. And, that's talking about him as a situation for another day, but it ties into the situation. They asked him about, the whole situation, asking about how the team is handling it and stuff. And basically Rocky Wirtz says that we're not thinking about 2010. We're trying to move past it, which it's a pretty serious situation, a pretty serious topic that you're dealing with here.
Yeah.
A player got sexually assaulted, in your franchise by a coach that isn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But
and I get why he wants to move. It's horrible, and I get why he wants to move on, but the way he went about it, just getting mad at the reporter and just basically having a temper tantrum on live television and just belittling Kyle Beach. It's just terrible. This guy, he's an old man who is acting like a toddler on TV, belittling a guy who got sexually assaulted on a member of his team that was sexually. It's terrible. It's terrible what he said, and he should have definitely gotten in trouble, and Gary Bettman should have done something.
Yeah, no doubt about it, no question. There should be repercussions for how he handled that situation, because he's like, we're thinking about now, and basically if you're not in the company, you can't ask about these questions. Well, the reporters have a job. The people want to know how you're handling this situation because it's been handled poorly before. And, this isn't something you just move past from, especially something that just came to news in the past 2 years. It's not like this has been in the news since 2010.
This only came out now.
Yeah. So I think reporters are completely justified to ask you about this, Rocky.
And I get why a lot of people hate reporters, and I can understand from a certain extent, but the reporters are trying to do good right now by getting them to open up about the situation, and they want him to apologize. They want him to do a proper apology. I know it's hard to give an apology for such an awful thing like that, but they want him to do something about this. Like, he needs to do something. He needs to step up, and he needs to take action, and he needs to accept his responsibility in this, and he's not doing that.
Here's what he does. He says, Kyle Beach, I'm sorry for me and all the rest of the Blackhawks are failing you. We will do whatever it takes to help you through this situation, even though, it's tough to help someone through a situation like this where they got scarred. Like, Kyle Beach's life is already ruined, like, after what happened. And for this,
that stuff doesn't just go away. It'll always be in his head.
Like, for this Nimrod to not understand the trauma that goes into something like this, I can't speak from personal experience because, I haven't been, what Kyle Beach has gone through. But for him to be so out of touch and brain dead and just, think this is something you can just sweep under the rug and get mad because they're not talking about any positives with the organization. Rocky Wirtz, the team sucks this season.
Yeah.
This is a situation that is still plaguing you. There's not much positives to talk about the Chicago Blackhawks right now. So if you don't have the balls to handle the situation, step down, because honestly, you're a wuss, and I could see that happening. Or actually step up and face the consequences like a sincere human being, which he has proven he is not.
You want to know what also honestly makes me more mad about all this is the fact that Gary Bettman is doing nothing and doesn't care about anything or anyone. He is the worst owner the NHL has ever seen, and I stand by that.
Like, I'm going to be honest, like, I've tried to not, keep up with this situation and everything that's been happening, in the past. Like, I've, obviously know about what's happened with the, Kyle Beach and everything, but staying away from it because it's just so devastating to see.
Yeah.
Devastating to see what's been happening with this whole situation going on, and, how they failed Kyle Beach. But yeah, Gary Bettman, I can't speak to how he's handled this situation, completely, but he has, not being able to step into doing, something about Rocky Wirtz there is absolutely ridiculous.
And Rocky Wirtz is this billionaire who doesn't care about the fans, who doesn't care about the team. He just cares about making money. I'm sorry, that's how pretty much every single owner in the NHL works. They don't care about their team. Well, maybe some do, but you can tell Rocky Wirtz doesn't give a crap about his team or any of his players because it seems like he doesn't even have a soul.
Rocky Wirtz, like, for him to not realize why everyone is asking him about negative stuff, like, is he like, is he stupid? You're just stupid, man. Like, are you that out of touch that you don't even know, like, why you're questioning, like, why these reporters are asking these questions, which are valid and something you should handle?
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how the situation has been handled and how Rocky Wirtz answered those questions. I mean, just pathetic. And honestly, being a Blackhawks fan, if I was a Blackhawks fan, I honestly really consider not being a fan of that team until the situation actually gets solved, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It sucks because, there's probably a lot of really good people that are fans of this team that have to be sitting and hearing this. And, it sucks, but, you got to think, like, there's probably a lot of stuff going on in other organizations, not just the Blackhawks organization. There's probably been stuff similar to this, but we'll never hear about it because of how much teams have tried to bury things like this.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Just thought we'd have to talk about it today because it was absolutely ridiculous. I wish that I was able to play the video for everyone to see, but I would have probably put a hole through my computer if I watched that video again, to be honest, Seth. But we'll do this again next week, buddy, talking about the Winnipeg Jets and other stuff to do with the NHL. Also continue talking about the NHL trade deadline. But until next week, man, when I see you on the show once again, you take care, Seth.
Yeah.
Seth Rach on this week's edition of part 1 of Graeme's Opinion here on the show. Coming up after the commercial break, I am going to be going solo to give my Super Bowl 56 prediction, as well as my NFL award predictions, as well as, I'm hiccuping, folks. Hiccup in here. So I'm gonna take a commercial break, talk about my Super Bowl 56 prediction coming up this Sunday against the Rams and the Bengals in Super Bowl 56 from SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, as well as talking about my NFL award predictions and also a rant on sports video games, even though I'm a huge fan of sports video games, but I'll explain more into detail about what I have a problem with sports video games coming up on the next part of Graeme's Opinion, part 2, here on Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba, everybody. Sorry for the longer commercial break. I was only planning to play 2 commercials there, but I had some hiccups, had to hold my breath, and pretty sure the hiccups have gone away now, but we'll have to wait and see, of course. But welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba. Seth Rach was with me for the first part of Graeme's opinion here, first part out of 2 that I will be doing today, and that brings me into part 2 of Graeme's opinion, talking about the NFL and Super Bowl 56. The Super Bowl, you could argue the biggest sporting event in the world for a single day event. I'd say that it is. It is coming up this Sunday. The NFL season coming to a conclusion after Sunday's matchup in SoFi Stadium between the Los Angeles Rams, who are technically the home team in this game because they are at home, facing off against the Cincinnati Bengals. Taking a look at the odds for this game, I'm pretty sure right now the LA Rams are favored by 4 points, by -4 to win this game. It's taking place at 5:30, and I just got to say this, I'm fired up for the Super Bowl halftime show this year. I know that this will probably get mixed opinions from many different age groups, but honestly, I think the young guns here, the younger people are going to enjoy this one, especially the ones who are big fans of hip-hop, big fans of rap. I mean, you get to see Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg on the same stage. I think it's going to be pretty entertaining. Mary J. Blige, I think, is the other person who is going to be, she's the other person. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce her name. Not really familiar with her music, but going to be excited to see what she's going to bring to the table. And going to be interested to see what songs these artists will play here. They, I believe, only have about, I think, less than half an hour, maybe 20 minutes only to do a halftime show. I mean, not much time. I mean, when you talk about all that star power. So it will be interesting to see how it's choreographed and how it's all planned out. To see all these superstars coming together and performing on Super Bowl Sunday in LA on the biggest stage in the NFL. And now going into the Super Bowl prediction that I have. Now, this is tough, folks, because Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford, both top 10 quarterbacks this season in the NFL. You take a look at the run game, I'd say that the Bengals have the advantage there, but taking a look at the Rams, how they were able to run the ball. Holding Cam Akers under the 50 yards. The 49ers did in that game. Looking at Cam Akers throughout this playoffs as well. Just looking at it, he ended up having 2 fumbles against Tampa Bay. So looking at the backfields in general, just looking at the Bengals, I'd say that they have an advantage in the run game with Joe Mixon, who's been really, really good in these playoffs. I mean, going over 50 yards twice, going over 88 yards on 21 carries against KC in the AFC Championship game, scoring a touchdown against the Tennessee Titans. And Joe Mixon is one of those guys who is a top running back in the NFL. I mean, you look at his stats this season, he was top 3 in rushing yards, and he was also top 5 in TDs. Taking a look at these receiving cores, I mean, I feel like they're both pretty stacked in terms of just, you look at the LA Rams, they got Cooper Kupp, who I think will be the offensive player of the year this season and has been the best receiver in football this year on stats alone, getting Odell Beckham Jr., who is back to playing his game, and he's been a great number 2 receiver for them. And just looking at the overall, depth of this LA Rams receiving core, you look at it, you got Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., Van Jefferson, who is injured with a knee injury. Not sure if he will be playing in the Super Bowl, but also Tyler Higbee, he's been a good tight end for this team this season, an underrated player, but he's out with an MCL injury. Of course, Robert Woods out as well. So they're pretty top heavy at receiver, actually, with Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. Just in terms of the depth, I would like to say that I think that Cincinnati has a bit more depth at the receiving position. I mean, you take a look at the players that they have at the receiving core, 2 guys who went over 1,000 yards this season, Jamar Chase, who I think is the front runner to bring home Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL this season. You look at T. Higgins, also, you know, a 1,000-yard receiver this season, 1,091 yards receiving. You know, you take a look at Tyler Boyd as well, who is a good receiver too. Uzoma, who is a good tight end as well. And this team, I'd say, is a bit deeper overall at the receiving position. Taking a look at the O-lines, I mean, I feel like the LA Rams have the advantage there. The Bengals O-line can be eaten up. They weren't eaten up against KC, but against the Tennessee Titans, I mean, allowing 9 sacks in a game, very tough for a team to win games like that, but they were able to. Looking at the defense, as good as the Bengals defense has been as well, you know, this playoffs, shutting down Patrick Mahomes, shutting down the Tennessee Titans, and being able to come up clutch against the Raiders. You know, I think you do definitely got to give the advantage in that aspect to the LA Rams, who have a guy like Aaron Donald, who has won the Defensive Player of the Year for, you know, a number of years in a row now. You know, Jalen Ramsey, who is one of, if not the best cornerback in the league. You also added a guy like Von Miller to that group too. And also just this defense has a lot of studs on it. So, you know, taking a look at the kicking, the special teams, I give that advantage to the Cincinnati Bengals. Just looking at McPherson, he's been absolutely money, the rookie kicker that he is. He's been absolutely sensational in these playoffs. Taking a look at coaching, you know, it's interesting because Zach Taylor is one of Sean McVay's understudies. I'm pretty sure Sean McVay has been to the Super Bowl. You know, this is his twice appearance. This is his second appearance now. And Zach Taylor, you know, for him, he, you know, able to, you know, silence the critics this season and be able to coach this team to a Super Bowl. So, you know, I think the coaching matchup, you know, you got to give it to Sean McVay because of the experience that he has had being to the Super Bowl before. But Zach Taylor is no slouch himself. And, you know, it will be pretty interesting to see if he is going to be my coach of the year coming up when I give my NFL award predictions. But taking a look who is going to win this game, I really want to roll with the Bengals. And I honestly was going to until Stephen A. Smith said that the Bengals were going to win. Stephen A. Smith of ESPN, his show First Take, has never been reliable on his predictions. But also Tim the Tatman, who has been cursed. He's some streamer. He streams Fortnite. But he's a guy that has been predicting a lot of stuff during the NFL playoffs and talking about the college football national championship. He has gotten like every one of his predictions wrong, and he is betting on the LA Rams. So kind of screwed in that way. Maybe the curses will cancel themselves out. But, you know, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals team have defied all odds this season, making it to the Super Bowl after only winning 4 games last season. Joe Burrow going out for the season, coming off of an ACL and MCL injury. Pretty sure it was ACL and MCL. I know for sure it was an ACL injury, but coming off of a very serious injury and having an amazing season, along with Jamar Chase being the Rookie of the Year. This defense stepping up for this Bengals team in the playoffs, and the Bengals being able to you know, rely on their kicker in the clutch moments for them to win this game. They have overcome all the odds to be here in terms of the teams that they played, the number 1 seed and number 2 seed in the AFC playoffs. And then you look at the LA Rams, Matthew Stafford. No one knew if he could step up in the biggest moments. He was able to. I'm a big Matt Stafford fan, by the way. I just absolutely love the story. And this team just going all in to make it to the Super Bowl this year, and they have done so. They're playing on their home field. You know, looking at this game, I think that Joe Burrow and Matt Stafford match up really well. And I think that overall, I do like this Cincinnati Bengals offense better than the Rams offense. except for the O-line. And I think that the Rams also do have the best receiver out of the bunch in this game in Cooper Kupp. You look at the defenses, even though Cincinnati's has been good, LA's has proven and has been able to do some big things this season, especially against the San Francisco 49ers last week. And not last weekend, but 2 weekends ago on Championship Sunday. But who am I picking to win this game? This is a tough one. Man, can Joe Burrow do it again and the Cincinnati Bengals team do it again, or will the LA Rams and Matthew Stafford be able to win one? I am going to go with this is a tough one. Who am I going to go with here to win this year's Super Bowl? 2 cursed people predicting in terms of being cursed in sports predictions. Man. It's tough. Man, this is a really tough one because this is going to be such a close game, in my opinion. I think it's going to be pretty back and forth in a Super Bowl that I think is going to be entertaining. But I am going to have to go with the LA Rams in this game. Not a knock on Joe Burrow at all, but the pressure he's facing in this game from a guy like Aaron Donald, a guy like Von Miller, them playing in their home stadium, them having that extra sense of pride of trying to win it all in their home turf, I think will be some of the key factors in this game for them. I think that the Cincinnati Bengals O-line will not be able to hold up against the Rams pass rush throughout the game. I think it'll be a close game, but I think that the Rams will do the necessary things on defense to win it. And I think that Matthew Stafford for the LA Rams and Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., I think those boys will, step up in this game as well. And, I think it's going to be a phenomenal game, but I will be going with the LA Rams to win this year's Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium, at their home stadium, and a Super Bowl that I'm not sure anybody or many people predicted. But that's my Super Bowl pick. I'm not going to give my score, just going to say the Rams are going to win this one. Now, taking a look at the NFL awards predictions that I got here, and we will start off with the big one, the NFL's MVP. And I am going to roll with Aaron Rodgers here. I think that Aaron Rodgers, even though he wasn't able to get it done in the playoffs along with Green Bay, it's a regular season award. He led his team to the number 1 seed in the NFC. Yes, he had Devontae Adams with him. I think still the most skilled receiver overall in football. But overall, you take a look at the pieces he had compared to Tom Brady, who is the GOAT, who I think could very well win this MVP. But you look at the pieces that Brady had compared to him, even though the Bucs had some injuries, you look at it, really the Packers only really having Devontae Adams as that big threat at wideout over all the other receivers. They don't stack up as much to Tampa Bay compared to what Tampa Bay has over them, even with Tampa Bay not having all of their pieces. But I think Aaron Rodgers, just looking at it, for him to be able to have the type of season he did again, coming back, after not knowing if he was going to play for the Green Bay Packers this season, which he definitely was going to. Adam Schefter is just an idiot. But taking a look, Aaron Rodgers, top 10 in passing yards this season. You take a look at that interception to touchdown ratio, 37 TDs for 4 interceptions, 68.9% completion percentage. And just a guy that, showed excellence once again this season. I think he is going to win the MVP just because of where he led his team to, and just, the stats that he put up once again this season, being pretty darn valuable to his team. And we saw how, when he wasn't able to step up, how this team wasn't able to hold in that NFC divisional game against the San Francisco 49ers. But talking about my offensive player of the year now, I think it's Cooper Kupp. I would love to go with my boy Jonathan Taylor here, but I cannot ignore the great season that Cooper Kupp had, an all-time great season, honestly, almost reaching 2,000 passing receiving yards with 1,947, leading the league in receiving touchdowns as well with 16 receiving touchdowns, leading the league in receiving touchdowns. And yeah, just being a key piece of this LA Rams team, a guy that stepped up through all the, injuries that this team has had, and as well as, just talking about just the production he put up this year, something that hasn't been seen in the NFL really for a very long time. Might have been the first time ever, but I'm not too sure. Him winning the Triple Crown of having the most receptions in the league, along with the most receiving touchdowns in the league and most receiving yards, and it wasn't even close, really. Who was the most productive player offensively in the league this season. As much as I want to give it to Jonathan Taylor, I got to give it to Cooper Kupp here. Now, Defensive Player of the Year, I think it's TJ Watt, being an instrumental part of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and a player that I don't know what he has to do to win Defensive Player of the Year, if not this season, because he just tied an all-time record of most sacks in the season, along with Michael Strahan, who had the record, 22 and a half sacks. That is absolutely insane. Also want to note that the Pittsburgh Steelers were a playoff team this season. And just in terms of the defense, that defense runs through TJ Watt, and he missed games this season, even though it was an extended season, and was still able to get the record. I don't see how there's any way how you don't give it to TJ Watt this season. And if they don't, well, I guess he'll never win it. But taking a look at the Offensive Rookie of the Year now, he is Jamar Chase for me. You take a look at what Jamar Chase was able to do. Just by far the best rookie out of anyone this season. I know there was conversation that Mac Jones would win it this year at one point, but Jamar Chase throughout the year just separated himself from the rest of the rookies. 1,455 yards, 81 receptions, and 13 TDs this season. By far the number one receiver on the Cincinnati Bengals this year, and a huge part of why that offense was as explosive as it is, even though they had Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow definitely liked, the help he's been getting from Jamar Chase this season. So Jamar Chase, just his gaudy numbers for a rookie, I mean, absolutely sensational. And he's going to have a pretty bright future too, but he's my offensive rookie of the year. Going into the defensive rookie of the year, and in my opinion, that is going to go to Micah Parsons. Searching up Micah Parsons' stats, apparently he is the runaway favorite for this award, and for good reason. 1 second here. I'm just trying to load up the stats of Micah Parsons. Oh my God. Micah Parsons. Sorry, folks. But yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying the segment up until this point. It's been a lot of fun being able to do this today. As always, I want to give you viewers a special thanks for tuning in today. It's been a lot of fun, but yeah, now I found the stats, so it's time to get into it. Micah Parsons this season in his career, so this was his first year in the NFL, and where are his whole game stats here? It's not giving me the total stats of Micah Parsons' season. Man, this is disappointing, but here it is. So yeah, his defensive stats this year, I mean, the guy put up 13 sacks on the year, and let's take a look at where that ranks him in terms of the sack leaders in the league. I mean, this was a guy who was sixth in the league in stats with 13 sacks on the season, a guy that had his fair share of tackles too, and a guy that was a game changer for the Dallas Cowboys on that defense as their season went along. 64 solo tackles, total tackles for loss. He had 20 I mean, his stats are pretty darn good. He had 3 pass deflections as well, 3 forced fumbles, and 13 sacks. Haven't seen many other rookies be able to do what he's done this season. And yeah, no rookies have been able to do what Micah Parsons has done this season. So yeah, he is my rookie of the year. But taking a look at my comeback player of the year now, and this is going to be the second Bengal that I think is going to be getting an award, and that I believe will be Joe Burrow. Now you look at what Joe Burrow has had to go through in his career already, having a season-ending injury, an injury which could be hard to recover from. He comes back this season with a team that didn't really improve the O-line that much, a team that added his boy Jamar Chase from college, an offense that is set up well around him. They just needed a quarterback to get them to the promised land, which is now the Super Bowl. Now, Joe Burrow this season, taking a look at how good he really was. 6th most passing yards in the league with 4,611. Taking a look at the passing touchdowns that he threw, he was top 10 in that as well. He only had, let's take a look at it, 14 interceptions on the season as well. And this was also a guy who, could run in some balls too. He had 2 rushing touchdowns on the season, 40 attempts for 118 yards. But Joe Burrow, what makes it so impressive is just him coming off this type of injury that he had last season in his rookie year as well. This being only his 2nd year in the league, coming out and, being able to be a huge reason why this team ended up winning a very tough division on paper coming into the season in the NFC North, and not the NFC North, the AFC North. And yeah, Joe Burrow, just his ability time and time again to get it done in the most clutch moments, just the stats he put up this season, being a top 10 quarterback in the league, only in his 2nd season in the league, coming off the injury that he did, along with where this team was at and what they finished like last season going into this year. Absolutely phenomenal. I don't see any way why he wouldn't win comeback player of the year. But taking a look at coach of the year now, and I am going to roll with Zach Taylor. Now, I don't know if this one will be right. I don't know if any of these will be right, but I'm going with Zach Taylor. I mean, this was a coach that people predicted to be the first coach fired this season. And he's been a guy that's been able to get the most out of his team, a team that's 10-7, a team that's still young, and a team that is now in the Super Bowl, a team that is the most surprising team of the season, in my opinion, to even be able to be in a playoff spot, let alone win the division. Zach Taylor, even though this team struggled defensively in terms of the numbers this season. I know this is a regular season award, all of these are, but for him to be able to make the adjustments that he has throughout the season, for him to be able to game plan like he has been able to, and give the Bengals, good success in these games, as well as Cincinnati being back in the playoffs. I think that Zach Taylor, I mean, you could give it to Matt LaFleur, who, had one of the best records in the league. You could give it to someone else, but my pick is Zach Taylor, just for how this team was able to turn it around this year. And, even though the coaching, at times you could question his decisions, but he made the right coaching decisions throughout the year for Cincinnati to be where they're at, and where they're at now is in the Super Bowl, having a chance to win the Super Bowl for the first time ever, I really think. I think it's that. I don't think Cincinnati has ever won, but first time they're back in the Super Bowl since 1988. Give it up for Cincinnati. It's just such a great story. But yeah, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Graeme's Opinion. Graeme's Opinion will be returning next week on an all-new edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. Stay tuned for the details of when that episode will be coming out later on in this episode, as we finish off with one more short thing, and it's a rant on why I think sports video games aren't the greatest. Now, I'm going to say this. I love sports video games. They are the only video games I've been playing really for the past 2 or 3 years. And I simply love them because I think it's the coolest to be able to, if you're playing NHL, to be able to live the dream through the screen and play on career mode, putting up godly numbers, of course, as that's what the term comes from, right? You put up video game numbers, which is crazy, as guys in the NHL like McDavid have been able to do that. And again, guy like Ovi too, and Crosby, and so many stars throughout their careers. But being able to do that and being able to play a game like Madden 2, have that football experience. I mean, MLB The Show as well is a fun one. And yeah, there's a lot of good sports games out there in terms of just the content. Being able to play as your favorite players, being able to play as yourself and build a career. But I will say this, I think that throughout the years, and I think that it's been a trend that's been happening for the past, 7 to 8 years, has just been realizing that these sports games are recycled year in and year out. It's the same content throughout the years. And honestly, I think a big problem with this is because they need to release a video game every single year. You look at Grand Theft Auto 5, for example, which is not a sports game at all, but just for games like that, a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, these games take a long time to develop and for them to perfect that. And unfortunately, for EA Sports, I mean, not unfortunately, but for them, they are releasing the new game every single year. So it's hard to, find a new game when you're releasing the same game every year. It's much easier to recycle the same game and just add a few new features, right? But I get that. I understand that. And until someone rivals EA Sports, which, I mean, there's 2K out there, but they don't have anywhere near the same variety of sports games as EA does. EA is the king when it comes to sports games. And I'm not going to get into, how shady of a company EA might be and all of that stuff. I'm talking strictly about the games here. And I do got to say, I understand you got to recycle games. Obviously, having the roster updates is essential, and you can do that. Doing the same things that they're doing, it's to be expected, and I don't think anything is ever going to change unless some company comes out and, takes a stand and says they can do it better than EA, which no company really has been able to, or maybe no company has had the nerve to be able to do that. But do gotta say this, I'm playing Madden career mode. I have Madden 20. I will say I am not buying Madden 22. I might not even buy Madden 23, but we'll have to wait and see. Depends if John Madden is on the cover, because rest in peace to him, an absolute legend, and the big reason, well, his name is on the game, Madden. But career mode, like, I don't understand it, why you can't at least take some time to make the dialogue a bit better and not repetitive. Like, my player in Madden career mode, in this Madden career mode I'm playing right now, I'm a quarterback, playing as a quarterback. I'm going to break every single record. I've won 5 Super Bowls in my career in that game, and I have the most rushing touchdowns out of any player in NFL history, which is absolutely unheard of. Like, that's the definition of video game numbers right there, right? But they have player interactions, and like it's like the stars on the teams interacting with each other, and they like throw you text messages, and they're like something along the lines of like, this game will prove that you're not an NFL caliber quarterback. Like, it's an out of touch game, because of course my guy's an NFL caliber quarterback. He's like the greatest player of all time. So it's just the game doesn't adapt to the situations that are going on. And I wish there was more of that realistic factor into these games when it comes to career mode, because it would be so much better if they were able to spend some time on that and create better dialogue and create better modes and actually be able to allow you to retire when you want to retire. It's just, there's a lot of problems in it. And I do gotta say that, really there's not many new modes that I know that have been added that have made many people happy. It's just kind of the same stuff over and over again. The modes that they do add aren't exactly the best created. And yeah, it starts off really good, the career modes, I find, especially in Madden, but they get boring, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, here's another one. NHL, I have a career mode in there. My guy's also putting up godly numbers. He's the best player in the league year in and year out. But this reporter they have always asks, like, do you think this performance will help separate you in the Calder race? And you're like, what? I'm 9 years into my career. Like, it's just stuff that is lazy, and it's the same repetitive thing. Especially the commentators are so repetitive and don't even call the right plays sometimes. I mean, it's just a lot of issues, a lot of glitches in these games, which I don't think should happen when you are the sports game company. But at the same time, it just comes down to the laziness from the companies, and knowing that as much as you'll complain, you will yeah, you'll always be buying their games because they are the really only ones who are selling it in EA, and they can bank off that, which is sad. But it would be nice if some other company took over and started making sports games. That's all I'm gonna say. I love playing sports video games, but I will admit there's a lot of issues with it. So, yeah, that will do it for this week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. Special thanks to everyone once again for tuning in to today's edition of the show. I want to give a special thanks to Seth Rach as well, once again, for coming on this edition of Graham's Opinion in the first part to talk about the Winnipeg Jets, the NHL All-Star Game, and about the NHL trade bait list, the players that could be on the move, how they'd benefit teams, and yeah, also talked about that Nimrod Rocky Wirtz of the Chicago Blackhawks. Be sure to check out that edition of the segment by rewinding in this edition of the show at some point. Also, a special thanks to Lorena Mitchell for coming on and doing a solo report, to Harry Siemens for coming on the Farm Report, and to Gordie Tumilson of Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy for coming on and talking everything, all things Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy. Rise and Shine Manitoba will be coming to you guys next at 10 a.m. Central Time next Wednesday here on ASTV Productions. Be sure to check that out on Facebook, on our Twitter, at Amateur Sports TV, our Facebook at ASTV Productions, or on our website at ASTV Productions to watch that edition of the show. Also, be sure to check out who the guest list will be, what the guest list will be for that episode just before midnight on Tuesday next week. Check out who the guest list will be all across our social media platforms on Facebook, our Twitter, and on our Instagram as well at ASTV Productions. And yeah, stay tuned for that game coming up today between the Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy Buffaloes U15 group taking on the U15 Rink Hockey Academy group. The game goes at 4:30 p.m. Also, if you're a fan of the Saskatchewan Female U18 AAA Hockey League, which is the top hockey league for AAA players in Saskatchewan female hockey, the Swift Current Wildcats will be playing tonight at 8 p.m. So be sure to check that out on our network as well. But yeah, folks, this will do it for today's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba Show. I've been your host, Graeme Forsyth, signing off now. Until we see you next time, folks, take care. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and have a wonderful weekend as well. Stay safe out there and enjoy this nice weather if you can, if you are in Manitoba, as I do know the temperature is really nice today from what I've heard. Hoping that I'm right on that. But yeah, if it is nice outside today, take some time to, go outside and maybe go on some walks. That could be very nice. But yeah, until next week on Wednesday, folks, so long. Take care, and we'll see you then. Peace out, everybody. Have a good one.